Flashback, The Quest for Identity, was developed by Delphine Software and released in 1992 for the Amiga and later ported to most of the other major consoles of the time. If the gameplay and cutscenes look similar to Another World, aka Out of This World, that's because Delphine Software developed that game as well. But Flashback is a little easier to pick up and play. The story is a cyberpunk-themed adventure where you play as Conrad Hart, an agent of the Galaxial Bureau of Investigation. This all takes place in, you guessed it, the future! The manual describes Conrad as an overall cool dude, and even has a slick little comic strip explaining the backstory. Conrad seems like a swell enough guy. He shows up late for a date with his girlfriend Sonia and then makes her pay for the meal. Chaos breaks out when the next president of the country is introduced. Sonia tries out a pair of these special molecular holographic glasses of the future and notices that some of the people at the event don't look right when she views them through these special glasses. You find out that they're actually alien imposters called morphs, living among Earth's population, kind of like in the 1988 movie They Live, starring Rowdy Roddy Piper. The aliens figure out Conrad is onto them though, so they kidnap him and erase his memory. You take over as Conrad and have to fight your way through 7 levels trying to retrieve your memories and figure out what the morphs are up to. At a glance, this looks like a standard platformer, but it's a bit more complex than that. Similar to Out of This World or even Blackthorn, you progress through the game by occasionally defeating enemies, but also finding items, interacting with the environment, and solving some puzzles along the way. Your character's animations are neat. You can draw and holster your pistol and kind of roll around. I appreciate the work that went into the level designs and the puzzles you encounter along the way. I will concede that this type of game may not be for everybody though. You'll either love it or you'll hate it. For example, in the first level, you've got to find a holocube, defeat some aliens. You eventually make your way to a wounded soldier who asks you to help him find a teleporter so he can escape and get medical attention. So you backtrack across the level and try to cross the bridge, but in order to use the bridge, you'll need a magnetic cartridge, but you can't use the cartridge to activate the bridge unless it's fully charged, so you gotta backtrack the other way and find the energy generator, charge up the cartridge, then backtrack the other way, activate the bridge, find the teleporter, go back and give it to the wounded soldier who leaves behind an ID card as he escapes that you'll need to open up some doors later in the level where eventually you'll find a cranky old man who has an anti-gravity belt you need to escape the level, but he'll only sell it to you for 500 credits. So you've got to backtrack through the level and find the credits you missed, and you get the idea. Along the way you'll encounter cryptic objects like lifts that are activated by motion sensors, and you'll have to figure out the right order to interact with the motion sensors to proceed. You'll also have to deal with instant death in the form of killer aliens and droids, dripping acid, toxic gas, electrified grass? There's also the issue of blind jumps. You move around by awkwardly jumping across holes or jumping and climbing up on platforms, and occasionally the only way to proceed is to just jump off the side of a blind ledge. Sometimes this works out and you land safely on another platform, but other times you plummet down too far and land right between 2 aliens who open gunfire, which doesn't even matter because the fall killed you and you soiled yourself. It's a trial and error game, but it makes it worth your while with cool animated cutscenes. Even something as simple as picking up an item or interacting with something in the environment gets a nice little cutscene, and I love this animation style. So if all of that sounds like your jam, this is definitely the game for you. But again, I can understand how it's just not for everybody. I will say it's definitely easier to pick up and play though than Out of This World, which kills you like 8 times on the opening screen. At least here you can kind of explore a bit and move around before the dying begins. And there are checkpoints in each level as well as a simple password system. I will also mention though that the play control is pretty awkward and stilted. It doesn't feel quite as bad as Out of This World on Super Nintendo, but it lives in the same neighborhood. Sometimes you miss a jump simply because the controls were too awkward and it just takes a little patience to keep trying. Most of the time you'll still land safely, somewhere, but it does lead to some untimely deaths, which will be a turnoff for a lot of players. I wish I could comment on the game's music, but there's just not much of it, at least not on the Sega version. It's mostly just sound effects or the occasional cutscene. The music that is there isn't much to write home about, though. The story is cool, though. There are all sorts of references to other science fiction films of the era. For example, when you find these holocubes, they contain pre-recorded messages from yourself giving helpful clues as you try to piece together your memories, similar to Total Recall where Arnold Schwarzenegger communicates to himself. I don't want to spoil too much about the story, but Level 3 is a total reference to The Running Man involving a sick game show where if you lose, you die. Clearly the developers were fans of these types of movies, and you'll notice subtle nods to all sorts of other movies like Alien or Blade Runner along the way. Each level is different and unique, from dense jungles to futuristic cityscapes. The game creates a unique atmosphere that you just don't see often in this genre. If any of this sounds interesting, I definitely recommend picking this one up and give it a chance if you haven't already. There was an HD remake of Flashback made for PS3, 360, and PC, as well as an official sequel called Fade to Black, which was only released on PC and PlayStation in 1995. You can pick up the original game on just about any retro console, somewhere between 10 and 20 bucks on the secondary market, though I'd stay away from the Sega CD version. They scrapped the animated cutscenes and replaced them with entirely different looking 3D cutscenes with voiceovers, and it's just not the same. Still though, that's a cheap price for a game that I feel like is definitely worth a look if you enjoyed Out of This World, Blackthorn, or Prince of Persia. What do you think? Did you play this one growing up, or find out about it later? What are some other games like this that I'm forgetting right now? Hey, I do this sort of thing all the time here on Friday Night Arcade, so if you enjoyed this, here are a couple other videos you may get a kick out of. You can also subscribe for new videos each week if you like. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.